We all know how much of a pain it can be to get exclusives sometimes. My heart is with you, Australia. And that becomes especially bad when it comes to convention exclusives. Hearing tales of old BotCon releases before my time of collecting is practically nightmare-inducing, which is why I am so happy that modern exclusives tend to get an online release, at retail price no less. The Legacy United Fractured Friendship 2-pack is a perfect example of this. Never in a million years would these figures have gotten in my hands if not for the Pulse release. And that is very relieving, because this has to be one of the best multi-packs I've ever gotten. So these two figures are based on the IDW designs of Orion Pax and Gladiator Megatron, and they do a great job at reaching those looks, considering they're both retools. And I think we'll look at Security Officer Orion Pax first. So this guy is based on the Gamer Edition Optimus mold, and while I've never owned that figure, I have seen it in person and I really don't like it. That figure just does not work for me. But this version takes every problem I had with that mold and fixes it. Well, almost every problem. The sculpted detail and proportions on this guy are really good. Most of the surface detailing is really rich and well defined, and it looks fantastic. There are a couple of moments here where the detail becomes a little too soft though. The thighs in particular seem a little out of focus to me, but that seems to be the only major instance of this. I really like how the chest plate is shaped and detailed, the angle it comes together at works really well for me, and the shins, shoulders, and hips have some really nice pops of detail. Love that honeycomb pattern. The proportions are largely solid. He is a little broad, but thanks to this guy being a little taller than the Gamer Edition version, that serves to be less of an issue. I love the head on this figure. IDW Orion Pax has one of my favourite reimaginings of the Optimus head sculpt, and this does it some true justice. In fact, the design at large works well as an adaptation of the more than meets the eye design. The shoulder wheels are roughly in the right spot, the proportions work well enough, and the retooled parts do well to emulate what's on the page. And the bright colours do well to emphasise the best parts of that design. But unfortunately, there are still some small issues with this mold. Hollowness. There's a lot of it. The inside of the thighs and the shoulders look really ugly, and I can't help but let my eyes get drawn to the dark, detailless gaps in any pose I get the figure in. And then there's the hollowness facing outwards, like the outside of the shins or the backpack. And good lord, that backpack sticks out. Granted, the hollowness prevents the figure from being back heavy, but it still looks a little rough. And while the hollowness is there and could be filled if you're willing to buy an upgrade kit for the figure, there isn't much you can do about the shoulder struts. I really don't like these. They look like exposed bones and bracket the shoulders so noticeably far off the body. I understand they're there for the conversion, but it just detracts from the figure's overall appearance. This isn't a bad looking figure, in fact I like it quite a lot, but the ugly spots are very noticeable. As for accessories, Orion comes with two wrist blasters that I'm gonna read as an Armada reference. They're cast in grey and have some pretty good detail, nothing too special. He also comes with a rifle from the Gamer Edition Optimus, now with an added bracket so the figure can hold it in his hand. This is just screwed in so you could remove it and get the arm rifle going if you wanted to, since the arm can still detach and plug in his arse. The wrist blasters plug in via 5mm ports and work pretty well, and the rifle looks pretty great in hand too, although it's not my favourite Ion Blaster design. Finally, the chest can open to reveal a matrix, the same matrix from the Gamer Edition Optimus release, which does look pretty good but has no interplay with the figure beyond the chamber it's stored in. Overall, not bad accessories. The posing on Orion is really good. The head is on a slightly loose ball joint with a good range. The shoulders move out really far and go all the way around. There's bicep swivels, slightly above average elbows and wrist swivels. He's got a waist swivel, good hips going out, bad going back, and exceptional going forward. He's got thigh swivels, normal knees, and some good ankle pivots. The posing on this figure is really strong. The joints are all really nicely toleranced and the ranges are all fantastic, and that lets him hold a lot of dynamic poses. Transformation on this figure is really intuitive, but not the best feeling. The way the backpack shifts out and the whole torso flips around is really clever, and I really enjoy the way the legs shift around to fill out all the center portion of the truck mode, but the struts for the sides of the cab feel really weak and bend and flex all over the place, and the legs feel kind of unguided in getting them into place. Closing up the feet is nice and satisfying though, leaving you with a pretty solid version of this big old Cybertruck. I really enjoy the aesthetic of this thing. It has the vibe of a truck and trailer combo like no other Cybertronian Optimus I've seen, and I really appreciate that. I'm a big fan of the variable wheel sizes that carry over from the Gamer Edition figure, and the smokestacks work too, whether you keep them up or lay them flat. I love the look of the cab, the huge flat panels are so imposing, and the painted windows work great. I enjoy all the pieces of detail on the sides of the truck mode, and I really appreciate that they went to the trouble of filling that gap in the back, unlike the Gamer Edition figure. There is one minor gap along the corners of the truck, but that's really nothing major, and it doesn't detract from this guy's look at all. Get those wrist blasters on there, and this thing looks stellar. This is a really great space truck, and a complementary alt mode to what is overall a really solid figure, which makes Gladiator Megatron being the highlight of this pack even more impressive. So this is a Siege Megatron retool. I'm sure you're familiar with these at this point, but specifically this is a repaint of the minor Megatron variant, which in my opinion is the best version of this mold. There aren't too many differences to the Siege version beyond a more tapered and shaped torso and larger and more pronounced shoulders, but those two features do enormous amounts for the appearance of the figure. The chest plate with its slight angle and huge industrial clamps, and the curve of the waist suggested in the taper of the abdomen and the vented detail, and those large intimidating shoulder pads with the caution lines smeared with red war paint. The changes made to the silhouette really enhance the look of what was originally surprisingly kind of a flat and uninteresting design. I've got to mention how nice this head sculpt is. Dare I say, best Megatron head design? I may dare. This is so much more industrial, and the sculpting can really breathe in these colors compared to the minor variant. The colors here are surprisingly nice too. At first it looks to be a pretty simple deco, with some typograph splotches of red for the war paint giving it some life, and while you wouldn't be wrong, there is a little more to it with the plastic choices. The grey has a bluish quality, and the black is an oily brown. These little selective changes to the hues really bring this guy some personality. And I can't not mention the black helmet. More black helmet Megatrons, Hasbro, they are beautiful! As for accessories, this guy has quite the selection. He comes with the standard accessories for minor Megatron, the drill that separates into two, and the pickaxe that separates into two, which look pretty good in hand, and in place of the fusion cannon respectively. But he also comes with two new weapons. A hammer, which matches the pickaxe really well, looks like a block of raw energy on with a handle, and a sword with a very interesting design. It's supposed to resemble an energy blade of some sort, and it does a pretty good job, but that is something that's hard to make convincing when working with a solid plastic color. Some lighter highlights or maybe even a clear plastic could have helped this piece, but it works for what it is. I prefer to keep him with the hammer and the pickaxe, then stick the drill on the back like the G1 back cannon, and you can also plug all the accessories into him at once using the ports on the shoulders. As for articulation, this figure is alright. The head is on a very tight ball joint that is weirdly far back, the shoulders can go out standardly and around all the way, there's above elbow swivels, standard elbows, he has a waist swivel, standard hips going out, forward and back, slightly loose thigh swivels, standard knees, and decent ankle pivots. There's nothing groundbreaking about the posing here, and the lack of wrist is annoying considering how many melee weapons he's packed with, but he can hold enough dynamic poses and he feels pretty good across the board. Transformation on this guy is alright. Once again, this is a Siege Megatron, it's an H-Tank with backpack action, and I don't think this version differs at all to the original Siege version. The locking tabs are smooth and it's very straightforward. The only major difference is the integration of the weapons. The instructions of this version have you use the handle of the pickaxe as a base to attach the drill to, leaving you with this version of a drill tank. But you could also make it like this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or... There's a lot of ways you can put this figure, let's leave it at that. Drill tank mode works pretty great. There's a lot of life in the mechanical detail here, like in the vents on the treads or the light array across the front. Sells this to me more as a mining vehicle than it did as a military tank. I feel like some more asymmetry could have worked well on the front of the tank, but it looks good as is. This is a very inoffensive vehicle mode. It's not the most amazing thing I've ever seen, but it is fun and solid. Turret rotation is a nice plus. But as a whole, this Megatron somehow manages to stand out as maybe my favourite figure of the character. There's such an energy to the industrial look of this design, covered in the angry war paint and smeared with pure bloodlust. Helps how solid this figure is as well. I like this a whole lot more than the last time I got this mold, and as a whole package of this and a really solid IDW Orion Pax, yeah, this is a fantastic 2-pack. I'd absolutely recommend this to anyone who can track one down. As of recording this, it's still in stock on Pulse, so I'd say jump on it before it's too late.